Good morning, everyone. Once again, thank you very much for making time to join in. This is the May 2024 edition of the Wellness Forums, brought to you by the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Nairobi. I will be your moderator and host, Dr. Wanjiko, and I will proceed to introduce our very amazing guests so that we can get right into it. So she is a career acceleration coach who has helped hundreds of professionals awaken their inner giants so that they reach their definition of career success and fulfillment faster. She has coached over 250 doctors in Kenya, in the diaspora, via group sessions or even one-on-ones to guide them as they navigate professional landmines with strategy and political savviness. She also serves in the fractional head of customer experience for a global software as a service corporation. And before this, she was a national vice president of a client experience in a global Fortune 250 corporation, where she led education and communication campaigns for the second largest health insurance program in the United States of America. She is also a senior director of learning and development, where her team built and delivered curriculums that helped over 500,000 professionals develop their soft and technical skills to achieve career success. With our guest, when she's not working, she can be found laughing, connecting with friends through a variety of activities. And for the next couple of hours or couple of minutes, our guest will be able to guide us through the root cause of Dr. Burnout, some of its implications, and what exactly to do about it. Let us all make a warm welcome to our coach, Coach Tabitha Njeri. The floor is yours.
Oh, I was on mute the whole time. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. So good to have you here. I'm so excited about what we're going to do today. Thank you for joining fasting in the morning for you and very late in the evening for me. So I'm really, really excited about what we're going to cover today. So why don't you go ahead and let's start it off with some energy because it's Friday morning. Why don't you go ahead and type in the chat, where are you coming in from? Are you in Nairobi? Are you in Kisumu? Where are you in Mombasa? Are you somewhere in the diaspora? Why don't you put it in the chat where you're coming in from? Hi, Shadrach. He's from Nairobi. Great to have you. Thank you. Where else is everybody coming in from? All right, I see a lot of Nairobi. Great. I'm loving it. Garissa. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for participating. And I'm going to encourage you to all participate through this session because I'm going to bring with me some special goodies for you. You know, today we're going to be tackling a very difficult and complex topic. But as we tackle it, I'm going to try and tackle it with some level of lightheartedness, right? So while you're learning, we're also having fun. You're interacting, you're leaning in, you're asking questions, and we're having a really good experience together. So thank you for being here because today we're talking about the key topic on Dr. Burnout. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And then once I'm done, just please confirm that you can see my screen. Can somebody please confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about a deep topic, but the goal is to talk about this important topic in a way that resonates with you as doctors. So we're going to go through a 4-step journey. We're going to actually look at evidence of doctor burnout. Are doctors really burnt out, or is that just something people say? And then we're going to look at some burnout myths that you may actually have had, and these myths may be getting in the way of your overcoming burnout. And then we're going to talk about some solutions to burnout. And believe me, the solutions to burnout have nothing to do with working out more, exercising more, going on vacation. And while all those things are fantastic, they often do not address the root of burnout, and particularly doctor burnout. And then finally, I'm going to end with an extra special tip for you, right, in terms of energy management. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing here today. I hope you're excited. I hope you're leaned in. And here's a reason for you to lean in even more. There are going to be 10 amazing gifts today. And let me tell you this, you want this gift. And the reason you want this gift is because I'll be offering 10 people who participate, who I see participating in specific moments, the most valid burnout assessment for doctors. And we're going to have a burnout assessment that is for those who are in clinical practice and also those who are not in clinical practice. And this is going to really help you understand what the root cause of your burnout could be, and then give you strategies that are not the kind of strategies you see on social media where people tell you to pray more, exercise more, eat healthier, drink water, meditate. And all those things are fantastic, but they just do not cure the root of burnout. So I hope I get to give away those 10 gifts. So you actually really want it. It is the most valid, right, burnout assessment out there that's been taken by hundreds of thousands of physicians. And it's really something that's going to be powerful in your toolbox. So let me go ahead before we jump in and ask you, are you ready? Are you going to lean in? Help me with some energy. It's 11 p.m. here. So type leaned in if you're ready, if you're going to participate, and we're going to do this. Thank you for being ready. You're leaned in. Thank you, Dr. Adia. Thank you, Grace. Anybody else leaned in? Yes, Michelle is leaned in. Thank you. As you can see, we're going to make this an interactive session. This is not going to be your regular, lesson. We're going to have fun as we do it. Super is leaned in. Joanne is leaned in. Thank you. Essie is leaned in. I love it. Thank you for letting me know that you're leaned in. Shadrach is leaned in. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And part of the reason why this topic is so important to you is that studies have shown that doctors are actually more likely to be burned out than many other fields. And part of the reason that you're likely to be burned out is because as doctors, you do what we call mission-driven work. I have met so many Kenyan doctors who actually find themselves having to self-sacrifice, whether it's self-sacrificing your time, whether it's self-sacrificing your emotions, right? And because you've got a purpose, you want to make an impact, you want to help others, and all that can lead to emotional exhaustion. Doctors are also more likely to be burned out because you typically have very high standards of excellence. And while that is a beautiful thing, what it can also lead to is that it can lead to perfectionism, which perfectionism is not a positive thing. It can also lead to these feelings of invincibility. And all of these things can contribute to burnout. Doctors also feel that they have to have curative competence. I cannot tell you how many doctors I've spoken to who feel like something is missing if they're not able to heal or cure their patient, even if it is completely outside of their control. So really taking on this, what's called curative competence, and taking responsibility for these outcomes makes doctors more likely to be burned out than many other fields. And the data is going to show us that too. And then finally, the whole idea of compassion. In your roles, you need to be compassionate to others. And sometimes it can be difficult to be compassionate to yourself or to accept compassion to yourself. And so a lot of doctors can find themselves suppressing their emotional experiences and even feeling this sense of emotional isolation, like you're in a room by yourself. There's not many other people that can relate to what you're going through. And all these reasons can actually lead to burnout. So I think now we're going to look at some data. And I really want to show you that there is evidence of burnout. And this is so important because the reason I want us to talk and walk through this data, walk through this evidence, is one of two reasons. The first is that if you are a doctor, you are more likely than not to experience burnout in your future. So the fact that you're here and you see the evidence, I want you to become cognitively aware, fully aware when you start to see the signs of burnout within yourself. And rather than overlook it, I want you to address it before you go down the burnout continuum. And then the second reason I want to show you this evidence is that for some of you, you might already be in burnout. I meet a lot of doctors who are already in full-fledged burnout. And later on, we'll see the different stages of burnout. I meet so many who are in full-fledged burnout and crisis. And I want you to know that if you're there, you're not alone. You're in good company. And that's part of the reason I want us to go through this data. I love to show this data so that you can realize you're not alone, but also when you start to experience it, not feel any kind of shame because you're experiencing burnout. So who's ready to go through the data? Who's ready? Tell me you're ready. Are you ready to go through the data? Let's make this fun. Are you ready? Who's ready? Great. Michelle is, Shadrach is, Grace is. You know, Shadrach is already earning some of these points for this free gift because he's answered every question from the very beginning. I see you, Michelle. Thank you. Grace, I see you. Joanne, Emily, Hilda, Rukia, welcome. Wonderful. Rukia is born ready. I love that. Phoebe is ready. Ready. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and continue the conversation. And I'm going to be looking at the most widespread annual doctor survey in the US. And these results are from 2023, but this survey has been happening for more than 7 or 8 years, every single year. And what's interesting is that the data shows that the numbers keep getting worse year over year. But you might ask yourself, why is she showing us US physician burnout? We won't cover much about the depression, guys, right? This is a powerful survey that's actually delivered every year. It's even broken down by specialty. It's really powerful. But what this will do is that it will show you the trends, because doctors are experiencing the same thing. I have clients in the US and I have doctor clients in Kenya, and the experiences are the same. So you can start to see the trends, right? And start to see that this actually applies in Kenya as it does everywhere else. And this survey this year had over 9,000 doctors respond. 39% of the doctors were female, 59% of them were male, 29 plus specialties, 95% confidence level, and a very low margin of error of about 1 plus minus 1%. So you can see that this is a very valid survey that has happened every year without fail. The 2024 results that just came out, and they are, I mean, it's actually interesting. So let's go ahead and talk, look through some of the data points. So grab your pen and paper. Let's look through some of the data points, and I want to see if you resonate with some of these. So one of the first questions they asked the participants is, are you burned out or depressed? And there was some qualifications in answering this. And what they found out is that 53% of the respondents indicated that they were burned out, the doctors, and 23% indicated that they were depressed. We're going to go a little later and look at the correlation between burnout and depression according to this annual survey. But what's actually interesting about this is that the numbers continue to creep. 5 years ago, in 2018, right, when they did the same survey, only 42% of doctors were burned out and 15% were depressed. So as you can start to see, the curve is continuing to go up and up. Then the next thing they asked is, you know, they wanted to see which specialty of doctors are most burned out. And it's going to be really interesting. Before I drop that, could you share your specialties in there? I'm very curious. Could you drop your specialties, even if you're in school, even if you're practicing? What are your specialties? And I know some of you in here might not be practicing doctors, and that's fine, right? We'll look at the rest of the content will be relevant for you. I see a lot of OBGYNs, great. I see pediatrics, orthopedic surgery, great, great. Are those the only 3? Obstetrics, okay, great, okay. Okay, so I mean, it looks like we have a lot of we have a couple of obstetrics, we've got a couple of orthos. So because they participated, I'm going to say this, I'm going to pass this on to Dr. Wanjiko, is that if for those two specialties, remind me, and because they participated for orthopedics and for OBGYN, to get you the 2024 specific data for those particular specialties. So thank you for your participation. We'll actually give you guys a little benefit because of that. So which doctors are most burned out? And it's so interesting to look at the data. Go ahead and look at your field and you'll see that emergency medicine tends to be the most burned out. OBGYN is right up there. It's interesting because family medicine just 5 years ago was at 42%. They've risen up to 57%, right? And you'll even see, you know, some fields like psychiatry are also really burned out. Some of the fields you would imagine might not experience a lot of burnout because they have some of the tools, right, to address some of these burnout challenges. So so I just wanted you to see that and see your specialty, if your specialty is on there. All right, let's go to the next one. Who are more burned out, male or female doctors? And they found out that female doctors are much more burned out than male doctors, who came in at about 46% and 63%. Can anybody guess why female doctors tend to be more burned out than male doctors? Anybody have an idea? No? Okay. So outside of the usual, right, which the fact that typically, especially as a woman goes down her life journey, has children, right, gets married, she often takes on a lot of responsibilities at home, right, in addition to responsibilities at work. So outside of that, here's what this survey actually found. This is not from Tabitha, this is information from them. And they said that a lot of times, female doctors are actually more burned out than male doctors because of having to constantly defend their authority. I cannot tell you how many doctors in Kenya, for example, I've spoken to who are female doctors who've actually walked into a hospital, and sometimes people did not think they were a specialist, for example. They were a consultant, for example. Perhaps they thought that they were still very early in their career. I think we call it medics. So if you've ever experienced that, indicate experience. I've heard that a lot in Kenya. And of course, it happens in the US as well. You know, being overlooked for leadership opportunities, right? Having different expectations of behavior, meaning how a female doctor behaves compared to a male doctor, being interrupted or being talked over, right? Or also organizations failing to uphold stated codes of conduct. And as you can see, all of these things have an emotional or psychological impact, and they tend to be some of the drivers as to why female doctors get more burned out than male doctors. If any of this is resonating, why don't you type resonate? I want to see if you're enjoying this conversation. Is this resonating? Yeah. Oh, I see some people answered. Thank you for answering. Somebody said, work and family, empathy overwhelm. Yes, we talked about empathy overwhelm at the beginning with a different term. Yes, having family roles. Yes, double shifts at work and at home, pregnancy and work. Exactly. And in addition to all of those, right, these reasons here, the 5 that I put, were also other reasons that these female doctors indicated contributed to their burnout, because this has an impact on your emotional health. All right, let's keep going. I hope this is resonating with you. But then what was also interesting is that they asked all the doctors, how long have you felt burned out? And it was so interesting to note that, right, more than 60% of doctors, of these 9,000 doctors, remember this survey had over 9,000 doctors participating, right? More than 60% had been burned out for more than a year, right? And 30% for more than 2 years. So what this is saying is that burnout in the doctor community continues to be persistent and pervasive, and a lot of the solutions that are being implemented for doctors, such as exercise more, take vacation, meditate, do yoga, drink water, pray, all of those are fantastic. But on their own, they do not address the root of burnout. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here. Let's keep going. And so, by the way, I share this to say is that if you are experiencing burnout, you are in good company. But also, if you're experiencing burnout, it's not a lost cause. You can actually turn this around. So don't feel like it's a lost cause. It's the reason we have this today, so you can have some of those tools. And if you're experiencing burnout, I pray that you completely participate and become one of the 10 people who will get the most valid doctor burnout survey out there to help you understand the true root of your burnout and give you recommendations that are specific to your situation. And whether you're in clinical practice or not, we have different surveys for that, right? It's not my product, it's a third-party product, right? So you participate on that. So if you think you're experiencing burnout, please be sure to participate. And so they asked the doctors also, what contributes most to your burnout? And it was so interesting that having too many bureaucratic tasks came up. You know, some of these administrative tasks, paperwork that you have to do came up. This may not be your case, right? What was number two? And it led by a lot. And I think it's because in the US, we've got the electronic health records, right? So there's a lot of paperwork as part of the process. Look at the second one. The second cause of burnout driver was lack of respect from coworkers. And actually that led over too many work hours. Remember, we looked at the validity. This only has there's a 95% confidence rating, and as we looked at earlier, right, over 9,000 doctors, right, compensation came in. Does this surprise any of you? And by the way, these doctors also said that COVID-19, despite being 5 years out, the implications of COVID-19 are still carrying on until today. All right, let's keep going. This was another interesting one that I would like all of you to reflect. Has burnout had a negative effect on your relationship? 65% of doctors said yes, 35% no. And then I'm going to show you two more slides. And I wanted to show you this because, again, this report is on burnout and depression, right? And I just showed you some of the data points around burnout, but I wanted to bring in some depression because I think it's important, and you'll see the interrelation between the two, right? Again, this is a huge survey. I just picked out a few slides for us to cover today. So what percentage of doctors indicated that they are depressed? 67% of doctors indicated they have colloquial depression, feeling down, blue, sad. It's a huge number. And it was interesting because I was looking at the numbers in psychiatry, and even in psychiatry, and each of these 29 plus had a significant number of doctors answered. Even in something like psychiatry, it was no exception. And then clinical depression was at 24%. But here's what else was very interesting that I wanted to share, right? They talked about what are the factors that contribute significantly to your depression? Look at the top factor. The top factor was job burnout, right? So I just wanted to bring this in just to show that there might be a correlation between job burnout and either colloquial or clinical depression, right? Which means that it's really important for you as doctors to understand the root cause of burnout, to really understand what burnout is and not the social media definition and versions of burnout, so that you can address it at the root, especially because you can see the implication, the potential implication on your own mental health. But it was also really interesting because this is the last one. The doctors were asked, why have you not sought, those who had not sought help were asked, why have you not sought help for burnout or depression? And it was so interesting to look at this data coming from the medical field, right? That depression says something negative about me, or I worry that people will think, I think there's somebody talking. Okay. All right. So I'll just continue. And that and that they worry that people will think less of their professional abilities. All right. So those are the data points that I wanted to share. And I know that they're tough, right? But I have to say that I'm really proud of all of you for being here at this conversation, because next we're really going to go ahead and uncover what burnout actually is. And then we'll go ahead and talk about some of those solutions that can help you overcome some of those burnout. But again, the 10 people that participate, right, will actually, I'll be giving this beautiful, most valid burnout assessment to 10 people. And those 10 people will have the opportunity to actually get this assessment, which will help you understand if you have burnout, and very specific recommendations for you tailored to your unique situation. So with that, I'm going to pause, right? And I'm just going to see, how are you all reacting to this? Is it resonating? Is this at least some kind of a validation that you're not alone, that this is a global experience that doctors are having, right? Because doctors are often, the field medical care are often the ones who are sorry, I just got a direct message that that just made me smile. Thank you. So I just wanted to see, how is it going? Are you enjoying this? Are you resonating? Were the data points meaningful to you? Does anybody want to say anything before we continue? Give me a second to to drink my kombucha. Anybody? Anybody have a reaction? Come on, doctors. You guys you're not shy, are you? Is the doctor community suddenly shy? Hi, Grace.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for organizing this webinar for all of us. It is I think it's a topic that is right on time. Actually, it's late because so many of us suffer from burnout, and as you said, you keep being told, you know, take leave, go for a holiday, take a few days off, and then during the holiday or days off, you just sleep it off, and then when you go back to work, you're back right to square one. So I can't wait to hear about this, you know, assessment and, you know, how to handle burnout. And I'm actually surprised that, because I used to think burnout is when you're just stressed from work, and it looks like it's something different. So thank you.
Very. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Grace. Please go ahead and send me a private message with your email, because you have earned one of the 10 burnout assessments. So thank you for participating. All right, thank you. And somebody asked, what is kombucha? It's a probiotic, and it's a fermented drink that is just really good for your entire digestive system. All right, so thank you. Let's go ahead and continue. So now we're down to 9. Well done, Dr. Grace. All right, so let's go ahead and now jump into what burnout is. And in order to address the topic of burnout, we are going to think about it from the lens of 3 myths. And in fact, the first myth is the one that Dr. Grace just talked about, which is a vacation will cure burnout. Who's had that before? That if you're burnt out, if you don't mind, somebody needs to mute themselves. Please mute yourself. If you're burnt out, or if you've ever heard this, that, oh my gosh, take leave, just go on a vacation, right? That's going to cure your vacation. Type me. I want to see how many of you have heard this before, because this is often the common, you know, solution we hear on social media, right? Just take a vacation to cure your burnout. Just take a vacation to cure your burnout, right? That's the first myth, that a vacation will cure your burnout, because the people who say that do not understand the difference between burnout and stress. Because you see, a vacation will cure stress, but it will not cure burnout. Why? Because what is stress? stress is actually characterized by over-engagement, doing too much. And you see, stress can be positive or negative, right? So stress is actually can be positive if, for example, you go to the gym and you're putting your body under stress. That is positive temporary stress. It is positive. You're pushing your limits. Stress can also be positive in the workplace if you're working towards a very specific goal. So you're pushing your limits in order to get to that goal. So stress is characterized by over-engagement. Stress can also be negative, right? Where you're over-engaging, but it's unhealthy and it's negative. However, on the other hand, burnout is different because the way burnout manifests itself is through disengagement. When you are burned out, you actually do not want to do a lot, right? You are disengaged. It is, you find yourself not doing enough and you feel emotionally blunted. We're going to go in deeper, but I wanted everybody to understand the difference between that. It is the reason why you can feel burnt out, you can feel tired, and tell me if this has ever been you before. Listen in and tell me that's been me. Where you feel exhausted and burnt out with work, you take a vacation, you go to coast, you go there for a week or two, right? You take some leave and you feel so good. And then you go back to work, and then 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, you're back to feeling exactly the way you felt before you had gone on vacation. Who's ever experienced that? The reason is when you went on vacation, you stopped over-engaging, so you cured your stress. What you did not cure is you did not cure your burnout. And that's the reason why 2-3 weeks later, maybe a month later, you went back to feeling exactly the way you felt before you went on vacation. If that resonated, type aha. Aha, aha, because I want everybody to remember that vacations are important, but they cure stress. They do not cure burnout. All right, thank you. Let's keep going in terms of the second myth. Ooh, I hear this one a lot. A little more exercise and a little bit more sleep will cure my burnout. I just need a chance to sleep. Nimechoka. Nimechoka. Mi tu nataka kulala. I just need to sleep and I need to exercise a little bit more. I've been letting myself go. I haven't been exercising. And if I do that, I'll be less burned out. Who's ever said that? Yeah, right? So many people say, and this is part of the social media, right? On what it takes to cure burnout. But you see, this does not cure burnout. And it doesn't cure burnout. When you understand the definition of burnout, you realize that. So let's go ahead and define burnout. Please grab that pen and paper. And as I define this is the first layer of definition. We'll keep going deeper. As I define what burnout is, I want you to reflect and see, is this me? All right? So the first way that burnout is characterized is through emotional exhaustion. Notice, I didn't say physical exhaustion or mental exhaustion, both of which can be addressed with a break. This is actually emotional exhaustion. So when you are feeling burnt out, it's more than feeling blue. It's you feel emotional exhaustion feels like you have lost your energy. It's when you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed and you feel exhausted by work. You can sleep an 8-hour night and then you wake up and the thought of work, going to work, just makes you feel emotionally exhausted, even if you're physically rested, right? When you are experiencing emotional exhaustion, your job feels far greater than you're able to give. All right? And in essence, when you're feeling emotional exhaustion, you feel depletion of your emotional energy, right? Which is very different from mental fatigue or physical exhaustion, right? So in essence, when your work is emotionally demanding, which is the case for many of you who are dealing with patients, it is very easy to experience emotional exhaustion. If that resonated, please type EE. So that's the first definition of burnout. It's lost energy. It's emotional exhaustion. So you tell me, right? Can working out cure emotional exhaustion? No, it can cure physical exhaustion. It can cure mental fatigue, but not emotional exhaustion. The second definition of burnout is depersonalization or cynicism, right? So lean in as I explain this. So what it is, it's depersonalization is lost enthusiasm versus cynicism typically shows up as negativity. You just feel negative about everything at work. Depersonalization is specifically for those who work with patients. So let's go ahead and describe this one a little bit more. When you're experiencing depersonalization or cynicism, I want you to see, is this you? Your passion for your job has faded. And you're starting to wonder, right? After all these years you went to medical school, you really had this dream of doing this amazing career, but somehow it feels like your passion for your work is fading, right? And now perhaps even your job starts rubbing you the wrong way. The patients start rubbing you the wrong way. You kind of feel impatient with your colleagues, with your job, etc. Right? Your work starts feeling like a burden, like a chore, right? And so rather than doing your best, what you find yourself doing is doing the bare minimum. You're checking the box. You're doing what needs to get done. You're not invested, you're not leaning in with vigor, right? And you actually even struggle to stay engaged if you have patients in a therapeutic relationship with your patients. That means that you start to feel an impersonal relationship with your patients. They start to almost become a number. You're almost just checking them off, right? They're more of a number because you lose that feeling response. And my dears, if you've ever lost that feeling response with your patients, and I love to share this with my doctors, right? Sometimes you can blame yourself, or even when I have a bad experience in a doctor or with a healthcare worker, a lot of times I realize they might be burnt out, and they're so burnt out, I'm just a number to them. So it's not that they don't care, but they've developed depersonalization. I'm just a number to them. They're not bad people, they're burnt out, but they may not realize that they're burnt out. So they lose that personal sensitivity to patients. How many of you have gone to hospital before, seen a doctor or a nurse, and they just don't have that personal sensitivity? That's called depersonalization, and that is one of the signals that the person may be having burnout thanks to depersonalization. I hope that one resonated with all of you because you see it a lot with doctors, and I see it in terms of people try to treat it the wrong way, which is you treat it as a behavioral issue. This person is insensitive to patients. Well, it's less of a behavioral issue, it's more of a burnout issue. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's important to look at what the root might be, right? All right, let's keep going. All right, the last definition of burnout is what's called reduced professional efficacy. What that means is that you've lost confidence, right? When you're experiencing professional efficacy, you start to have nagging doubts about how qualified you are and your self-worth and whether you're really making an impact or achieving anything through your work. And it's so interesting. When I experience people who've had this before, they're probably masters in their job. They're educated, they've done it before, but suddenly they start doubting themselves. They start doubting if they're really capable. They start doubting if they can do something that they have probably done millions of times before. That's called reduced professional efficacy. And it is the third way that burnout actually manifests for all of you in the medical career, right? And so in this case, you start to question whether you're having the kind of impact that you need. So that's what I wanted to do is first, that's the first layer of the definition of burnout, right? That when you're experiencing burnout, you're experiencing lost energy, emotional energy, or you're experiencing lost enthusiasm. There's a continuum, or you're experiencing loss of confidence. So can you see now how these recommendations on social media of do yoga, drink more water, eat healthy, work out are really good for your own health? They're important, your physical health, your body health. And of course, they have an impact on your mental health, right? But can you see how they don't cure burnout? and that burnout is a very different beast on its own. And this is why you as doctors need to understand this, because as the data showed, like we looked at earlier, you are more likely than not to experience burnout in your career. So now I want you to start seeing if you're experiencing burnout. Can you message me privately if you don't want anybody to see? Are you experiencing did any of this resonate? Are you feeling some level of burnout? You can answer me privately or put it publicly. It's up to you. You can just choose my name. Does anybody have an aha that they want to share? Unmute yourself, share something. Raise your hand, maybe just unmute yourself, raise your hand. Let's have you share something. Any aha, any realization. Yeah, somebody send me yes. Somebody else said all of them for more than 2 years. Thank you for sharing that. And that aligns with the data that we looked at earlier. Remember, we saw that over 60% of doctors have experienced burnout for more than 13 months, with 31% of doctors having experienced burnout for more than 2 years. So you're not alone, you're in good company. Right? It's just so you don't feel like you're going through this alone. Thank you for sharing. I'm getting a lot of yes, I have. Thank you. Yeah, somebody else said definitely meeting the whole criteria, and it feels cathartic that I'm not alone. Exactly. I'm so glad you are here to see the data, because the data makes you see you're not alone. This is what is it called? An epidemic in the medical community. It's a problem globally. Right? Somebody just said, from your talk, I realized that I've been burnt out for years. At some point, I was diagnosed with mild depression, but for today has really opened my eyes. Thank you for saying that, because remember, we looked at the data that is showing some kind of potential correlation between the top driver of depression, right, for people, for doctors, was tied to job burnout. That was 64% or something. And then the second category came in at 30-something%. Literally, doctor burnout can lead either to colloquial burnout or colloquial depression or clinical depression. We looked at that data together. So you can see there is that correlation. And this is a valid study of doctors that has been done with tens of thousands of doctors year over year. This particular one that we looked at had 9,000 doctors responding. Somebody said, it's encouraging that I'm not alone. Thank you. Somebody else said, Bill said, as healthcare workers, we often see our colleagues get into burnout, but often don't know what to do about it. Thank you for saying that, because we'll be talking about that today. I got a private message. Someone said, I've had burnout for a long time. It's affected my social life. Thank you for sharing that. Remember, we did the survey and 65% of doctors said that their burnout is affecting their relationships. And their relationships are not just their spouses, it's also other relationships, their friends, they're willing and even going out there to connect with people, your social life. Thank you for sharing that you're not alone. We got another private message who said, it's interesting that you painted this picture. Picture out has helped me realize that I'm actually not in the wrong career, but I'm experiencing burnout. Thank you for saying that. You're not in the wrong career, you're just experiencing burnout. Thank you for saying that, because that's an aha that I want many of you to realize before you abandon this field that you've invested so much time, energy, money, everything into, that you may not be in the wrong career, you just may be experiencing burnout. Thank you for that comment. Somebody said that it can, it led into alcoholism and relationship breakout. My darling, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, right? Thank you, thank you. All right, somebody said it affected their confidence at work, and they started wondering what changed them. I almost quit my career, they say. Thank you for sharing that. And what's interesting is that we are getting an equal number of comments from men and women. And as we saw earlier, both men and women are affected by burnout, right? It is not affected by any gender. Thank you. So somebody asked a question, is it possible to be burnt out for so long adopt to live with it and have strategies to get through. Yeah, you can, in life, you can bull through everything. The question is at what cost, right? It may be bad, but it gets you going. That is smoking, sleeping, reading too much, generally just doing things mechanically. You don't even live a life anymore. Absolutely. Those things can happen as coping mechanisms because you feel so lost, right? And you feel so lost and you feel like, oh my gosh, right? I can't, right? What would I, you just find a way to cope. Thank you for saying that. Somebody said, I'm in tears, real tears. I'm not alone. And that has made me feel like it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You are not alone. This is a global problem for those people who are in the medical career. You as doctors, our nurses, people in the medical career are struggling with burnout. Somebody said, aha, I've been thinking seriously of changing my career, so it's burnout, right? Somebody said, I've been clearly burnt out for more than 3 years. So somebody said, so I was diagnosed with major depression, but I don't think it was because I was sad. I was just disinterested with work, professional efficacy, depersonalization, right? And the thought of going to work made me sick, which is emotional exhaustion. So you were experiencing full-blown burnout. We'll look at the stages because you were potentially experiencing, just based on what you're saying. I'm not making any claims. Sounds like you were experiencing both emotional exhaustion and depersonalization at the same time, which on this scale, right, puts you in full-blown, we're gonna look at it, full-blown burnout. All right. Somebody said, I have hate for patients, like I don't want to see one. Thank you for sharing that. Just awareness that what may be driving you to have this insensitivity might be this whole concept of depersonalization and cynicism. Thank you. So Robert asked, how do we prevent this? Thank you. Yes, thank you for asking that. And then somebody asked, I go to work to earn, lost energy to progress my career, affects my relationship with my children. Yes, absolutely yes. And to the question that was asked, somebody else asked, yes, we're going to go in and address this. All right. So with that said, thank you for all of your comments. And we're going to continue walking through this. Right? And we're going to talk about, like the question was asked, how do we address this? How do we prevent this? We're going to go ahead and walk through that. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. Yeah, there was a comment in here where somebody talked about, I didn't read it because I thought it might expose them. And I didn't want to do that. Where somebody had talked about the way they're treated by the more senior doctors, right? The way they treat others, right? And you'll notice, remember we talked about the second cause of burnout. Number 2 was being disrespected at work for doctors. Isn't that mind-blowing? Disrespected. So what they were experiencing is not uncommon. I'll tell you why I think it is the case that you see this a lot in medicine. Based on my experiences, I've worked with a lot of doctors, and I found that a lot of doctors do not get training in leadership, right? So they don't necessarily understand how to influence, right, without authority. They don't understand how to gain buy-in. And so sometimes the approach, which might make sense in some situations, but if you're in the middle of a surgery, you want to be directive. There is no time for sweet nothing, right? But the fact that doctors don't necessarily go through, at least from my experience, what I've seen, training on leadership, training on influence, gaining buy-in, right? Developing others, motivating others, right? Are rising through the ranks because of their technical ability. I have not seen that there's equal focus as doctors are rising up to teach them how to become better leaders, influencers, innovators. And so that's why sometimes in a lot of workplace cultures, you can see, like the survey showed us earlier, doctors were saying the second driver of burnout is how I'm being treated. Remember, the data showed us that, how I'm being treated. Is that fair? Do you guys get leadership training on influence, motivating, developing others, or you guys just kind of fly by the seat of your pants? Do you guys get that training? Somebody just wrote, I'm experiencing this disrespect and I felt burnt out. Yeah. Yeah, I've called you guys out. I hope you guys are feeling well. Now we're going to go ahead and keep going on this conversation. Thank you for your deep, deep engagement. It's going to be so difficult to give away the other 9. All right. Okay. I've also heard people say that better time management will help me overcome burnout. That's the last myth I wanted us to cover, right? And that's really important because we need to understand the causes of burnout. When somebody says, I just need to outsource more, I just need to be more organized, you're just putting blame on yourself that has nothing to do with yourself. You can outsource everything. Yep. Oh, yes, go ahead. Did somebody want to say something? No? Okay. If you want to say something, please, you're welcome to just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you and we'll let you speak. All right. So what are the causes of burnout? I want to talk through 6 causes of burnout, right? And as we go through these 6 causes, I want you to see which of these actually applies to you. I want you to see which of these are your root cause. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. The first root cause of burnout is an unmanageable workload. Let me go ahead and read this for you. I want to read this so I don't miss anything. So listen to this and see if this is you. And if it is you, make sure you make that mark and write down unmanageable workload. And you'll start to see. By the way, can going on vacation cure an unmanageable workload? No, you're going to go on vacation, come back, and the workload will still be there. Can exercising cure an unmanageable workload? No, you'll go exercise, the next day you'll come back to work and it's still there, right? So that's the first cause of burnout, is an unmanageable workload. Let me read this to you. You feel the workload is not manageable. Too much work to do in too little time. The job requires you to work outside of your skill set without the necessary support to develop these skills. The work regularly interferes with your personal life, interrupting your recovery cycles that are necessary to stay actively involved in a demanding profession. If that's your root cause of burnout, write down unmanageable workload. Maybe give it a score of 1 to 5. 1 is 5 is it's the highest. Let's go to the second one. And some of these feel like you will, as you look at them, you'll start to think that you've got no control. And the reality is that some of these things are systemic, but you've got control to address them. It's just not talked about enough. Let's go to the second root cause of burnout. The second one is lack of sufficient control over your work. Let me go ahead and read this to you. You feel restricted by policies and procedures that were developed without your perspective or your participation. These processes and procedures constrain your professional judgment. Paperwork and meetings interfere with doing effective work. If that's you, things are just done and you're just expected to implement with no voice, that could be your second driver of burnout. Let's go to the third cause of burnout. Inadequate reward and recognition. Let's talk a little bit more about this. You feel that others ignore your contributions, or I hear this second one a lot, or they take credit for themselves. You may feel that the pay is inadequate, the work is tedious, supervisors are dismissive, and are unappreciative. Ooh, that's one of your causes. Write that down. Go to the next one. Ooh, an unsupportive work community. Let me read this to you and see if this is contributing to your burnout. You may identify that your organizational environment, you may identify or you may see, or your organizational environment is filled with conflict or some level of hostility or one-upmanship, always trying to one-up-man each other, one-up each other. And this negative community or this negative environment in your workplace is susceptible to bullying, abuse, or intimidation. Or they may be lonely places of isolation for you because there are closed cliques in your workplace. If an unsupportive workplace community is what you're experiencing, type that. Write that down. Let's go to the next one, if that's your cause. Remember, regardless of whether you are a practicing doctor, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor who's not in clinical practice, right? You're in administration, or even maybe you work for USAID, or you work for the UN, or you work for World Food, anything, right? These all apply and are causes of burnout. Let's go to the next one. Lack of fairness and consistency. You may feel, in this case, listen and see if this is you. You feel that arbitrary workplace decisions are delivered. Arbitrary workplace decisions are delivered without explanation or rationale. People are unsure of receiving fair treatment on decisions regarding, you're really unsure about fair treatment on decisions regarding resources, compensation, your work shift. I hear about people who it just feels unfair, the work shift they're put in, right? Or even career development. It doesn't seem fair how those decisions are made. And in this place, you may find people that people are rude to one another, showing little appreciation for diverse values, lifestyles, or cultures. If that's you, write that down if you're experiencing that. And here's the final one, values disconnect. Let me read it to you so you listen in. You feel a profound disconnect between your personal values and the organization's values or actions. There is a disconnect between your values and the organization's values or your boss's values and their actions, right? Furthering, and that means that furthering your organization's mission means that you're frittering away your time on trivial, meaningless tasks. And to a greater extreme, this is to the complete extreme, furthering the mission means you're acting in a way that is actually destructive. Can you now see how going on vacation, exercising, meditating, praying, talking to your neighbor, talk therapy, which is very important, by the way, all these things are essential. I'm not saying they're not essential. They just don't cure burnout. Because a vacation or working out more, does it cure an unmanageable workload? No, you go on vacation, you come back. The workload is still there. Does it address lack of sufficient control in your work? No, you go, you come back, you still don't have control. Decisions are being made arbitrarily without your voice, and you're just being asked to perform like a robot, right? Will it cure inadequate recognition and reward? No, it will not cure any of these. And this is why the topic of burnout is so important, right? And the way that it is handled often on social media is a little bit irresponsible, because it leaves people feeling what's wrong with me. And it leaves people, like so many of you have said, feeling like I entered the wrong career, or I do not like my patients, or I just feel disconnected, or I'm exhausted from this, emotionally exhausted. And all of those tips and techniques that are put out there don't get you to the root of burnout. So many of you might say, okay, those are really good, but they seem outside of my control. Some of them are systemic. But in all of these things, they are within your control. I've worked with so many doctors who've joined my program, who come in burnt out and are able to get to the root of their burnout. And they're able to reclaim their passion for their work. They're able to get re-energized in their work. Now, when it's very systemic, sometimes the answer is to exit the organization in a strategic way. But more often than not, there is a lot of tools in your toolbox. Like I said, in medical school, a lot of times you're not taught these things that would help you navigate that. I call that political savviness. The key is political savviness. We're going to go into more detail. I want to see how you all are doing. Feel free to send me private messages. Okay, somebody wrote, senior doctors and teachers believing that by exercising brutality and tyranny will create fear, control, and power over juniors, need for control, lack of self-control, poor esteem. Yeah, and that's not uncommon. And I actually do think that it is a disservice. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Do you get leadership training? Do you get training on leadership in medical school? Like deep training or no? And I actually think that that's part of the root, right? Because you're not trained, so people are just, and you guys know when we were growing up how authority, depending on your age, if you're in your 30s or 40s, if you're in your 20s, maybe it's a little different. But if you're in your 30s or 40s, you know that the way power was applied was always dictatorial. Whether you're in school, the teachers have ultimate power and they're dictating. Sometimes you go home, your parents have ultimate power and they're dictating. So we grew up seeing power as push down on others. So it's no surprise that if that's not taught, then that same messaging of power shows up in the workplace, because people are not taught how to distance themselves from that kind of dictatorial type of leadership, which is what we've all grown up with, right? If you're in your 30s or 40s, your 20s, I even think the 20s is the same. I don't think it's much different. Yeah, you have to find and pay for it to have leadership training. Yep. Yeah. No, learning by humiliation. Yeah. We need to learn communication skills as we properly deliver feedback. Exactly. Not in medical school, but GOK provides senior leadership courses, managers through KSG. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I've actually had some clients go ahead and take those courses. Yeah. Yeah. Chrissy says there was no room for autonomy or leadership. Absolutely. So I actually think that it's a systemic issue, because of the culture of leadership that we were raised in, right? And not having the tools to get others to do what we need them to do without having to push, without having to bully. I had a class on bullying. I don't know if any of you attended. I had a class on workplace bullying. It was a free class. It was one of my most attended classes. So much so I had to have it twice. I had to have 2 separate sessions. And people were crying. These are Kenyans just experiencing so much workplace bullying, right? But the good news is we walked through specific strategies on how to handle a workplace bully, because you don't handle a workplace bully by pushing back. It never works, right? That's where you pull in your influence and your negotiation skills, because you've got to handle a workplace bully differently, unfortunately. Otherwise, they come back harder. Right? So it is just systemic, not just in the medical community. It is systemic in our workplace culture. But things are getting better. All right, good. All right, how are you all feeling? I want to drink some water. Okay, so now, like because it's midnight, it's past midnight. I do not have, I just came with my regular water, so don't judge my big water. So as we do that, does anybody have a comment before we continue on some solutions? How are you all feeling? Are you ready to keep powering on? Ama mmechoka kidogo? Mmechoka. Somebody said, I am T for triggered. Oh my gosh, we are triggered. Oh, Pauleni, I did not mean to trigger you guys. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to trigger all of you. I hope it does create for reflection. And if I triggered anybody deeply, I'm really sorry. Okay. Yeah, somebody wrote, working from AM to PM in a highly demanding unit with authoritative supervisors. Yeah, because we didn't learn influence. Somebody said eye-opening, engaging, triggered is the word. Yeah, very much leaned in for more solutions are needed. Yeah, yeah. Somebody said leadership courses may be available to GOK staff and leaders. Not sure it helps though. Somehow the environment doesn't support implementing all the land good aspects from these. Yeah, yeah. Somebody said the talk is touching our reality. Yeah, we need more of these conversations. Yeah, and I'm happy if we're not able to finish. I'm happy to have a plan B. Okay, great. I'm glad you leaned in. All right. Anybody have a comment? I still have 9 assessments to give. There was somebody else, Dr. Grace, who spoke much earlier, had earned it. Dr. Grace, if somehow I don't see your stuff, please send me a message on Facebook, on social media, Facebook, just in case, so I don't miss you. But you're one of the 9. Somebody said, tumechoka kabisa, kindly tell them they drain us. We are not the same. They expect teachers to consider their children, but don't do the same. It can't be us praying for the shift to end. Oh, I feel like we need to have a session on a different topic one day. Whenever there is a space, I feel like we need to have a session on handling a difficult boss. I feel like that's an important session for us to have, perhaps. And if there is no space in, because I know you guys are all pre-planned, maybe we can have one on a separate, not part of the experience. But I feel like that's an important topic. How do you deal with a difficult boss? Right? Because if you can't change them, perhaps you can get some tools to navigate it and not let it really affect you, because I'm getting a lot of messages, private messages here, talking about difficult bosses. Really sorry, guys. All right. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay, darlings, oh, sorry. I don't mean to call you darlings. It's a habit. I just call people darlings. Please, don't take it personally. I have to like unlearn it. But I do call people darlings. It's all in good spirits. I hope that's okay. All right. Even abroad, doctors are burning out of health at an alarming rate because of blame gains in the health system and low pay, no benefits, etc. Yes, yes. We actually, I don't know if you were here, Dr. Sylvia, if you were here when we went through the data at the beginning, we covered that. And this is a universal problem. Somebody said, okay, that's okay, darling. Thank you for the permission. All right, guys, let's go in and talk about some solutions. Yeah, let's finish with power. Oh, I had another myth. Oh, yeah, this is a good myth. At least I put a cute cat. So you're either burned out or not. And I'm gonna skip this because this is not as important. We've covered that, because when you're engaged at work, you have 3 characteristics, right? Engagement means you've got a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind that is characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. It's not a momentary state, it is a continuous state, right? When you have engagement, you've got vigor, which means you've got high levels of energy, mental resilience while working, the willingness to invest in your work, and the persistence even in the face of difficulty. The opposite is exhaustion. When you are absorbed because you're engaged, you're fully concentrated and happily engrossed in your work, where time passes quickly and you've got difficulties detaching yourself to work. Look at me, I'm at past midnight and I'm here talking to you guys because you're absorbed. Time just flies, right? And then the opposite is the depersonalization or cynicism. And then dedication, when you're engaged, you're strongly involved in your work. You're experiencing a sense of significance. I mean, when we're done here, I'm going to be like on my Facebook talking about Nani kama mimi. Nimeongea na daktari ka 200. Right? Sense of significance, enthusiasm, inspiration, pride, and challenge in your work, right? So this is what engagement looks like. And when I work with people in their careers to regain that enthusiasm, I always say that that is what work is supposed to be. Work is supposed to be an expression of your passion, your skills, your strengths. You should be leaned in. Work should be energizing you. You should leave work tired, but still energized. Not every day, because there'll be, of course, life has ups and downs. But majority of the time, you should be enthusiastic, you should be engaged with your work. That is the ultimate goal. And that's what I help people do. That is my passion, to help people recapture some of that lost passion. All right, let's go ahead and see. I want you now here to look at yourselves and see where you are on the personalization, on the burnout profiles, because remember, it's a continuum, right? So green is good, yellow means may or may not be problematic, red means it's problematic. So let's go ahead and look at the burnout profiles and see where you are. If you are engaged, you have low emotional exhaustion, you have low depersonalization, you have a high sense of personal accomplishment, and you are engaged. The second level is called ineffective. When you are in the ineffective stage, you may have your emotional exhaustion may or may not be problematic. Your depersonalization, which is that losing your sensitivity and feeling disconnected to patients, may or may not be problematic, but your sense of personal accomplishment is low. And a lot of times, this whole loss of confidence in your abilities is a factor of tedious work, little recognition, and a few other things. If you're overextended, right, you've got high emotional exhaustion, right? You're just emotionally exhausted as we defined it. Your depersonalization and personal and professional efficacy may or may not be problematic. And oftentimes you're overextended because, right, you're experiencing long work hours or you are overload, and you're having disrupted recovery time. You're in the disengaged section. When you're disengaged, your emotional exhaustion and professional efficacy may or may not be problematic, but definitely your depersonalization is high. We call that disengaged. And then finally, when you're in burnout, you only need two of the categories. If you're experiencing both emotional exhaustion and depersonalization or cynicism, then you are considered to be in full-blown burnout, even if you might still have a strong sense of professional efficacy, but if those two are red, then you're experiencing professional burnout. And what I always say to people is this, to my clients, I always say, we want to catch this early. So just because you're engaged today doesn't mean tomorrow you might not be in one of the categories. The key is always to catch it early, understand the root cause, right? What I shared with you, that wheel that I shared with you, and address it before you get to full-blown burnout. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about some solutions. How are you all feeling? Are you ready for the solutions? Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some solutions. Okay, so some solutions. Actually, don't think we'll have enough time to cover all of them. I thought maybe we'll cover. I had highlighted these ones in yellow: lack of sufficient control over your work and inadequate reward and recognition. I think because those seem most uncontrollable. Let's go ahead and look at those. Which one did we say? Yeah, that one. Okay. So you experience lack of control, right? This is a root cause, right? Typically, you're experiencing that when there's micromanagement, where you're not permitted to make certain decisions. You're feeling constrained by policies and procedures without your perspective or participation. You feel lack of sufficient control around how you do your work. Your professional judgment is constrained, or paperwork and meetings interfere with effective work. Some things I want you to think about if you experience this is, I want you to learn how to increase your autonomy. I teach a lot of people how to work with a micromanaging boss, right? That's why I'm like, I don't know if we'll have time to go into the solution. But if you've got a boss that does not give you autonomy, I have a formula that I help people use with them, and it's amazing how often it results in these people giving you autonomy. Feel like we just won't have enough time to cover all of these in the depth that you need. Because I feel like these are just individual topics that we just have to go into, and we may not have the time. But at least I wanted you to understand the root cause. But you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to end with the tip that I put for everybody, because somebody talked about work-life balance as well. I want to look at this. I want to look at this with you, because I want all of you to lean in, because I want to share this tip with you, which is really going to help with your stress levels at work and helping you be more present, helping you be more emotionally connected at work. And what I want to cover here is, I want to remind all of you that we have 4 sources of energy. We actually create 4 types of energy. And unfortunately, we tend to overwork and overuse only one of the 4 types. I want to walk through the 4 types of energy with you. And then I'm going to give you the tip. We all generate physical energy. This is energy that is derived from our physical bodies. It's a factor of our health. So we want to make sure we're firing from this cylinder. This is where eating healthy, drinking our water, our working out comes in. Because if you're unhealthy, you're not producing enough physical energy. So I want all of you to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to produce enough physical energy, which will help you navigate these complex situations that you may be experiencing at work. The second kind of energy that we all generate and produce is mental energy. And mental energy, we produce it when we engage in analytical and thinking tasks. When you're producing mental energy, you're able to focus. And you as doctors, based on the kind of work that you do, you are producing, right, a lot of mental energy. You've got mental firepower. That's good. But then there's 2 types of energy that I want you to make sure you're always pulling in. Actually have a deeper assessment that we go into each of these to help people see where they create energy and where they're not creating energy. And people are often surprised. But 2 that I know that a lot of rational right brain people, I don't know, right, left, right, might not use enough is emotional energy. We have the ability to produce the same way we can produce physical energy that allows us to move things, to use our body, to use our physical energy and our mental energy. We also generate emotional energy. And this comes from we derive it from our connection with others, from our fulfillment. So when I hear that some of you are struggling at work to really connect either with your colleagues, with your bosses, with your patients, it tells me that you may not be producing enough emotional energy to help you navigate your workplace. Right? And so you're going to work firing from 2 out of 4 cylinders. right? And then the last kind of energy that we produce is spiritual energy. This has nothing to do with religion, nothing at all to do with religion, right? Spiritual energy is generated when you do something meaningful to you. When you all started your medical careers and you were young and fresh, I know you were fired with spiritual energy, right? This is your why, your reason for doing it. So I want to make sure that as you're going to work, you're generating all four kinds of energy. And I'm going to give you a major tip that will help you. Most of you won't do it, but if you do it, it's tedious, but it somehow helps to re-energize and reawaken all these reminders for these four energies. And the tip that I'm going to leave you with has to do with the ultradian rhythm. And then I'm going to have some closing thoughts. I don't know if you know about the ultradian rhythm. The ultradian rhythm is something that none of us can control. It is embedded within us. You can Google it. Your doctors, you probably know it. And what the ultradian rhythm tells us is that human beings are only capable of being consistently focused for 90 minutes, period. After that, well, there's some people, rare exception, who go beyond that because they've trained themselves that way. Maybe you have, right? But then after 90 minutes, what happens is that now you're fueling yourself on stress hormone, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, right? So your effectiveness when you're being powered by stress hormone, right, is not similar, because what the ultradian rhythm is, it's like a trowel. Let me do this so you guys can see me. It's like a trowel, right? It starts at the top in minute 1, and it keeps diminishing until you get to the bottom. So up here at the 90-minute mark, you're at your best. You're firing from all cylinders. You can generate all four types of energy. But the ultradian rhythm is within us. You can't override it. It's a fact. After 90 minutes, go read your medical books if it hasn't come up there yet. It's a fact, right? After 90 minutes of concentration, you're now on stress hormone. So your productivity, your effectiveness is significantly diminished because you're powering on stress hormone. So then what is the solution? The solution is that every 90 minutes or so, you must reset your ultradian rhythm to get you to the top. It's part of the reason why I'm mentally tired now. I got to this moment, my brain is mentally tired. You must reset your ultradian rhythm. You must get back to minute 1 at the top of the trowel, because now you're at the bottom of the trowel after 90 minutes of focused concentration. How do you do that? Every 90 minutes, let me put this up so you can see it. Every 90 minutes, it's so simple. And if you do it, it will transform you. But you know what typically happens? Have you guys heard about sophistication bias? Have you heard about it? Sophistication bias happens where we think that if something is simple and it's not sophisticated enough, it's ineffective. And we tend to have a bias for complexity or things that seem very hard. And then we ignore the things that might be simple and have more of an effect. That's called sophistication bias. So I urge you not to overlook this because of sophistication bias. It is this simple, right? So what I want all of you to do as you go into your workplace is that every 90 minutes, set your phone, set your watch if you wear one of those watches, set your alarm. I want you to take 90 seconds, right, to breathe in a count of 3, and breathe out for a count of 6. The count of 6 is important because that's what it takes to clear out your cortisol in 90 seconds. And that 90-second breathing, renewal in for 3, out for 6, and repeat for 90 seconds will reset your ultradian rhythm. Your energy will be back on point. You'll be able to produce your 4 types of energy much better. And so please take that tip. I give it to people. Some people take it, some people don't. But the people that take it always talk about how it transforms their experience at work. And so I want to leave all of you with this. I feel like this topic is unfinished. And I feel the depth of the emotion that came through this. And I thank all of you for participating. But I'm also feeling like I've opened you up and I haven't closed you up. And it would take me just as long to close what we've opened. And I would be open, to being, if there's ever an opportunity, even if it's off schedule, to kind of come back and just focus on these solutions. But I also want to leave you with this. You are in a beautiful career. I mean, medicine is a beautiful career. We look up to all of you, right? You impact lives, right? You generally, depending, may make really great money, right? It's a beautiful field. And I know your passion and your intelligence brought you here. So I want to encourage all of you to know that all is not lost. And I want to encourage you to know that there is a lot of doctors who are thriving and having amazing careers, and they're loving it in medicine. It is a beautiful field. We just need to give you some more tools for your toolbox so that you make sure that you give yourself the best chance to thrive in this career that we all admire, because you all know how much we admire doctors, right? You guys help us get our health back. What would we do without you? So I wanted to leave with that thought, right? That I know this was a tough conversation. I know I've opened you up. I'm getting your messages. Yes, if you have questions, put them in the chat. Somebody asked, how many cycles of the ultradian rhythm should you do? You can do, yes, exactly. Somebody said sophistication bias. Yes, right. Just repeat that for 90 seconds. Breathe in for 3, breathe out for 6 for 90 seconds every 90 minutes. Like, let's say if you're just about to go into surgery, you can do it right before surgery, right? Just reset yourself every 90 minutes. It's that simple. Somebody asked, what are my contact details? You may email me at tabitha@tabithanjeri.com. Or you can find me on Facebook as Tabitha Njeri. You'll see my face, but my hair is shorter. Shadrach, thank you for saying you crave more of this. You have participated this whole time. Shadrach, please send me a message. You have earned one of the burnout assessments. Yeah, Dr. Mwende says, I feel being positive-minded would resolve some burnouts, like when your boss or supervisor is harsh, be like, this is to make me the best specialist in the world. That could have some validity, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes perspective, mindset always matters, for sure. Okay. Kindly project the last slide. I want to take a screenshot. This one? I think that was it. Okay. Right. Some positivity is toxic positivity. Yeah. There is both. Mindset is important, but also when situations are challenging, we need the tools. That's why I teach things like handling a difficult boss, handling bullying at work, because we need the tools. We don't always control who we work for, but we certainly can control our political serviness so that we can influence them. Yeah, and have the best workplace experience. Oh, somebody asked, does imposter syndrome relate to reduced professional efficacy? So there are 6 types of imposter syndrome. It's another really powerful topic. A reduced professional efficacy can give you feelings of being an imposter, for sure. For sure, it can. There are 6 types of imposter syndrome, but the uniqueness about imposter syndrome is the thought in the back of your mind that perhaps one day you might be discovered, so you overperform to not be discovered? Great question. I need more, especially on managing and dealing with burnout. Yeah, somebody said that. How can we access more? What we could do is, I don't know. Why don't you reach out to me? Reach out to me personally, and then I'll reach out to me personally, and then I'll also see if there is an opportunity to come back. But I know the schedule is booked. I know the schedule is booked. But reach out to me if you need some more, and then we can see where we go from there. I don't know who to give the other 8 burnout surveys from to, because I got all leaned in and forgot to do this. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. Any final questions? Thank you for, I'm going to ask that person that just asked me, I need more, especially on managing or dealing with burnout. How can we access more? Because it was a private message, I don't want to say your name. Go ahead and send me a note. At this point, I'm just being random. But that person commented a lot, right? That person commented a lot. So I'm writing their names down. So now we have 3. And this, I like this assessment because it's going to get to your root cause of burnout, and it's going to give you tailored solutions to your exact root cause. Okay. Randomization, yes. All right, well, thank you. Somebody said, my wife, a medic, needs this assessment. If she was not here, she can reach out to me and she can pay for an assessment. All right, I see 4 names over there. So we're at 5, 6. Okay, great. There was somebody who said they were in full-blown burnout earlier on. Who was that? It was a lady doctor. I won't say their name. And they just told me they're in tears. They wrote that I'm really, oh, there you are. I see you. That lady who wrote that she's in tears. I've written your name down. We're going to add you. We're also going to add the person who talked about the major depression diagnosis, because this is not, I'm not a doctor, guys. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a doctor. I don't teach anything to do with depression, but I think you will find some good correlation with your burnout. That person that wrote a really long note. I've written your name down. Thank you for participating. We'll reach out to me, send me an email, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Okay. I think we will have a couple more left, so we'll go from there. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wanjiku, Dr. Ida, for inviting me. Thank you to the OBGYN department for inviting me. I hope this was valuable. Are there group assessments? Yeah. What we can also do is that these are individual, but they are group, which means that everybody can take an assessment, for example, in a workplace, and then I can provide, everybody gets their individual, but it also provides us a holistic, right, department-wide for all those doctors' assessment with the solutions and strategies to address that for that entire team. Yes, for the person that asked that question. All right, so Dr. Ida, can I turn this over to you? And thank you all for being here. Yes, and we do have the assessments are both for doctors, practicing doctors, and doctors who are not in clinical practice. We have both. Because some of you doctors are not in active clinical practice. Somebody asked that question. All right, Dr. Ida, for all of you, if you feel like you've been opened up and you really need to be closed, because I'm feeling like...
Mimi
I'm sorry.
nilipanda expressway jana, kulikuwa na traffic kama kitu yote. Expressway ilikuwa mbaya.
Yes. Okay, so somebody else, please reiterate. After emotional energy, what is the last energy? It is spiritual energy, which is tied to your why you're doing this. Good question. All right. Thank you. Somebody said, come back, close you up. Yeah, if there is times, if there is opportunity, I'm even open to going off cycle. I'm happy to come off cycle where we just spend the 90 minutes just going into solutions. Dr. Ida, I'm going to pass it over to you. Are you there? Oh, I'm muted. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Coach Tabitha, for the session. There's also a comment about an assessment for senior consultants. We may pass that through our faculty, Dr. Diana Ondieki, as well. So we could also have them also do that as well. I think you have tackled all the questions. What I'm seeing on the chat box are now accolades. Thank you. Very informative and engaging webinar. Please do come again. Bravo. Thank you very much. Bless you for taking time to take us through this. Yes, thank you everybody for your comments, for your questions. Maybe I would take it back to Coach. Do you have any parting shot before we invite our patron and faculty, Dr. Diana Ondieki?
Ted, can you hear me? It says I'm muted.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
You
great.
can hear me.
My parting shot is, oh my gosh, we need you doctors. You're in an amazing field. We all desire to be like you. So thank you for being here. It's been a joy to go through this experience with you. Thank you for leaning in. And I'm grateful for your participation. Thank you. Dr. Diana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Coach Tabitha. That was a very exciting talk. As you've said, wounds have been opened, eyes have been opened. Most people now realize where they are. Yesterday, we had a nationwide blackout, so I was almost scared that this talk might not take place. So I was glad that it came back at around midnight. So as you saw, we had very good attendance. Maximum was 226. That just showed how much people were hungering for this talk. And I'm also thinking that maybe you can share with us a Google form that we can share with people so that we can see how many people would like to have a one-on-one with you, or even if it's a group talk, because I know you're pretty expensive, but if you can subsidize it for us, we can see how many people would be willing to actually go deeper. Because yes, we've opened it up, but we need to close it up, as you said. And having gone through your coaching experience, I know there's a lot that goes into this. And for someone who might really be having an issue, I can guarantee you that you might get, okay, it's not 100%, but definitely you'll get sorted or get your answers through the program. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. We are grateful that you are here, and have a good day. Thank you.